Let me tell you something strange about visibility. In a world that screams, "Look at me," there are people who choose to disappear, not because they're hiding, but because they found something the rest of us lost: peace in being unseen. No stories, no reels, no daily updates, just life, quietly lived. And yet their silence speaks louder than most voices online. Because in the noise of our digital existence, the quiet ones have become the rarest souls. Ghosts in the machine, present but unseen. Who are they? Why do they choose silence in a world addicted to exposure? And more importantly, what do they know that we've forgotten? This is the psychology and the quiet rebellion of people who don't post themselves. Every minute, millions of photos are uploaded. Moments become metrics. Happiness turns into hashtags. Even sadness comes with filters. The world has mistaken visibility for validation. We document sunsets instead of watching them. We announce achievements before we've even absorbed them. We craft stories about our day before the day has even ended. But not everyone participates. Some people scroll quietly. They observe, reflect, and vanish again into silence. No posts, no tags, no announcements. Just eyes watching and minds that rarely rest. In a culture that equates posting with existing, these people seem almost mythical, like they've opted out of an unspoken contract the rest of us signed without reading. But they aren't rare, they're just unseen. And if you look closely, you'll notice them everywhere. The person at the concert actually watching the band, not filming it. The traveler who returns with memories, not content. The friend who never announces their wins but quietly builds empires. They exist in a parallel reality, one where life doesn't need an audience to matter. Psychologists call it self-restraint, but it's deeper than that. People who rarely post often score higher in introspection, independence, and emotional regulation. They're less swayed by external approval, less obsessed with applause. To them, silence isn't absence, it's control. The choice to decide what the world doesn't get to know. Because the moment you share something, it stops being yours. It becomes part of the collective feed, dissected, compared, judged. So they protect their peace like art that can't be displayed, not from pride, but from understanding that privacy is power. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced something without immediately thinking about how you'd share it? When was the last time joy felt complete without validation? For many of us, the answer is uncomfortable. But for those who stepped back, there's a reclaimed wholeness. A memory isn't measured by engagement, it's measured by how deeply you felt it. A relationship isn't strengthened by being displayed, it's strengthened by being lived. Research from the University of Pennsylvania found that reducing social media use significantly decreases loneliness and depression. Not because connection is bad, but because performed connection is hollow. The people who don't post have figured this out. They've learned that the best moments in life often can't survive translation into pixels and captions. The truth is, most of what we post isn't communication, it's performance. Every caption says, "This is who I am, please believe me." We've turned identity into a product, likes into validation, comments into currency. But people who stop posting begin to see the illusion. They stop living in third person, stop thinking in captions. They rediscover what a moment feels like when it doesn't have to look good. That's not disinterest, it's awakening. They realize that authenticity isn't something you display, it's something you protect. Because here's the trap. The more we perform our lives, the less we live them. We optimize for optics instead of experience. We choose restaurants that photograph well over ones that taste amazing. We craft personalities that get likes instead of being people who feel real. And somewhere along the way, we forget which version of ourselves is true. The quiet ones, they remember. They've stopped curating and started existing. They've stopped announcing and started experiencing. And the freedom in that is almost unimaginable to those still caught in the cycle. In a world built on attention, choosing silence is rebellion. It's saying, I exist beyond your feed. My worth isn't measured in metrics. My identity isn't up for debate in comment sections. They're not antisocial. They're just done performing. They felt what it's like to live for applause, and they've chosen to live for peace instead. There's something profoundly rebellious about that. In an attention economy, silence is the ultimate protest. It's refusing to be monetized, commodified, or consumed. They're not deleting their presence, they're redefining it. They're saying, I'm here, but you don't get to consume me. And this isn't about superiority, it's not about judgment. Many of these people used to post constantly. They know the dopamine hit of notifications. They remember the anxiety of checking engagement. They've lived on both sides of the screen. But somewhere along the way, they asked a different question. What if I just stopped? And in that stopping, they discovered something radical. The world kept turning. Their relationships survived. Their sense of self, it actually strengthened. Because when you're no longer performing, you can finally be present. This is the paradox they've embraced. In becoming invisible online, they've become more visible to themselves. Silence online doesn't mean silence within. Many of the quiet ones feel deeply. They write, reflect, analyze. Not out loud, but inside. Sometimes they've been burned by exposure. Sometimes they've realized that sharing their light invited too many shadows. So they retreat, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Because not everything beautiful survives in the spotlight. Some things only bloom in shade. They guard their experiences like sacred ground. They understand psychological ownership, that what you don't post remains entirely yours, your memories, your moments, untouched by judgment or trend. There's a concept in psychology called experience sampling. It shows that people feel happier in moments when they're fully immersed, not when they're documenting. The people who don't post have learned this viscerally. They know that grief shared publicly often becomes performance, that joy broadcast widely often feels diluted, that intimacy displayed loses its intimacy. So they keep their treasures close. They have inside jokes no one else knows. Victories celebrated only with those who truly matter. Struggles processed in journals, therapy, or long walks, not in captions. And there's a weight to their presence because of this. When they speak, it matters, because they're not speaking to an invisible audience. When they celebrate, it's genuine, because it's not optimized for engagement. When they hurt, they heal, because they're not performing their pain. This is emotional depth in its purest form. Unobserved, unvalidated, undeniably real. Here's what happens when you stop posting. Time slows down. The world regains its texture. You cook without photographing it. You laugh without recording it. You exist without performing it. It's not disconnection, it's reconnection. Studies show that people who take long breaks from posting experience a surge in clarity, peace, and satisfaction. Because when you're no longer waiting for feedback, you start hearing yourself again. You stop living for applause and start living for alignment. Silence becomes your sanctuary, not your prison. And the changes are subtle but profound. You notice the smell of coffee again. You have conversations that meander without purpose. You watch movies without checking your phone. You feel boredom and discover it's not something to fix, but something to sit with. The people who've embraced this describe it as coming home to themselves, as remembering what it felt like to be a person before they became a brand. They rediscover hobbies that don't need to be shared. Painting for no one, writing for themselves, walking without destination. And in those moments, something extraordinary happens. Life stops being content and becomes just life. Pure, unfiltered, beautifully ordinary. This is the reclamation of presence. The understanding that being here, now, fully, that's the whole point. Not capturing it, not sharing it, just being in it. Ironically, people who don't post often form the realest connections. They notice who checks in without reminders. They remember without updates. They listen without interrupting. They find depth in conversations that don't need to be public. They understand that the most meaningful moments of life, growth, heartbreak, love, rarely make it to the feed. And maybe that's the beauty of it. Because real connection isn't about staying updated, it's about staying present. Their friendships aren't maintained through likes, they're maintained through showing up. Their love isn't proven through posts, it's proven through consistency. They're the ones who remember your story from 3 months ago, who ask how you're really doing, not just what you've been up to, who sit with you in silence and make it feel like home. And in a world of performative connection, this kind of intimacy feels rare. It feels earned. It feels real. Because it's not mediated through screens or measured in reactions. It's just two people, fully there, without an audience. This is the paradox they live. By being less visible online, they've become more present offline. By sharing less publicly, they've deepened what they share privately. They're not invisible, they're just free. Free from the pressure to perform, free from the need to prove, free to exist as they are when no one's watching. So the next time you wonder why someone never posts, don't assume they're detached. Maybe they're more alive than ever. Maybe they've learned that being unseen doesn't mean being alone. It means being whole. They've realized that not every truth needs an audience, that real confidence isn't loud, it's quiet. Because in the end, we weren't designed to be performances. We were meant to be people. And the ones who don't post, they remind us of that. Every unshared, unfiltered, beautifully invisible day, they remind us that you can exist without announcing it. You can matter without proving it. You can be seen by the people who matter most without being visible to everyone else. This isn't a call to delete your accounts or abandon social media entirely. It's an invitation to question, what would change if you stopped performing? What would you discover if you just existed? Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But the quiet ones already know the answer, and they're not coming back to tell you about it. Because some truths aren't meant to be shared. They're meant to be lived. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is silence. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply exist.